Well, the Russiagate plot continues. The Guardian is reporting today that they have obtained leaked documents that show Putin had a plot to put Trump in the White House in 2016. Let's go ahead and go over this article and then discuss what we think about this latest twist and turn in the Russiagate saga. Kremlin papers appear to show Putin's plot to put Trump in the White House. The Guardian reports Vladimir Putin personally authorized a secret spy agency operation to support a, quote, mentally unstable Donald Trump in the 2016 U.S. presidential election during a closed session of Russia's National Security Council, according to what we assessed to be leaked Kremlin documents. So they're showing that they have obtained these documents that are essentially the minutes of a meeting that happened in the Kremlin. It was the Security Council, the National Security Council for Russia, getting together, and these high officials in Russia were plotting to put Donald Trump in the White House in 2016. Says here, the key meeting took place on 22nd of January 2016. The papers suggest with the Russian president, his spy chiefs, and senior ministers all present. They agreed a Trump White House would help secure Moscow's strategic objectives, among them, quote, social turmoil in the U.S. and a weakening of the American president's negotiating position. Okay, so let's stop there for just a second here. The idea that Russia wants to see social turmoil in the United States, that they want to see a destabilized United States is, where exactly is the evidence of this? What sort of benefit would Russia have in destabilizing the United States in this way? Now, I understand if Russia's objectives were something like stopping the U.S. expansion of NATO, stopping U.S. influence in Eastern Europe, right? Those are all things that are pertinent to Russia, Russia's national security, Russia's objectives. But the idea that Russia, in this sinister foreign nation plot, is looking to destabilize and create social unrest in the United States, it's a bit far-fetched. We're not trying to do that to Russia. Okay. I have to take that back just a little bit. Maybe we are, but if we are, it's an attempt to overthrow the government, right? So it's the attempt to, you do it with a purpose. You're not doing it just because. And that's sort of what this is implying, that if Trump were in office, then Russia would get to create social unrest in the United States. If we create social unrest in Russia, like maybe there's a possibility that that's happening now with Navalny and the protests regarding Navalny in Russia, that is to overthrow the government. That has a direct, the direct, implication is that we would create a problem for Russia and therefore potentially a problem for Putin himself. So it's a little bit, that right there is a little bit odd. I don't think Russia has any interest in creating social turmoil unless that means directly getting rid of the administration or changing our position when it comes to NATO and the expansion of NATO. Goes on to say Russia's 3 spy agencies were ordered to find practical ways to support Trump in a decree appearing to bear Putin's signature. Ooh. By this point, Trump was the frontrunner in the Republican Party's nomination race. A report prepared by Putin's expert department recommended Moscow use, quote, all possible force to ensure a Trump victory. Now, look, that is not unbelievable. It is probably the case that Russia was, in fact, hoping for Donald Trump to win. We know they hated Hillary Clinton. So to them, nearly anybody would have been better than her. Putin and Hillary had a long history of really, they had a bad relationship ever since Hillary Clinton sort of hinted at ousting Putin. She made some comments that threatened him, that threatened the stability of Russia. And ever since then, there was some beef between the two. So, yeah, you know what? I bet Russia absolutely wanted Trump in the White House. In fact, every single country on earth, my guess is their government officials have a favorite when it comes to U.S. elections. We know that U.S. elections have huge implications for the entire world. Countries all around the world are watching our elections. They're wondering who's going to be next because it matters to those people in those countries. So I'm positive that every single nation on earth, yes, their government leaders got together and said, this is who would be more favorable to us as a nation if they were in office in the United States. The difference is we don't then go around accusing all of those nations of somehow meddling or instilling a Manchurian candidate or somehow interfering in our elections in some way, right? We just say, well, everybody's got an invested interest in the American election. My guess is, if I were a betting woman, that China had a more invested interest in Joe Biden becoming president of the United States. My guess is there were meetings amongst Chinese officials that sat around and said, yeah, you know what, it would be better for us if Joe Biden were president of the United States. Does that mean that China then meddled? Maybe they did. There's a possibility that they absolutely also used maximum pressure or all possible force in order to get Joe Biden into office. Why aren't they reporting on that if that's the case? Every single country on earth likely had an agenda. Israel likely had an agenda. Brazil likely had an agenda. Germany likely had some thoughts of who they would prefer. I mean, every single country on earth. So that's not really all that far-fetched. The question is, when is it a story? When is it a problem? When does it actually meddle or interfere or actually make a difference in U.S. elections? Goes on here, Western intelligence agencies are understood to have been aware of the documents for some months and have carefully examined them. The papers, seen by The Guardian, seem to represent a serious and highly unusual leak from within the Kremlin. So these were leaked documents. It's a highly unusual leak, meaning we're not even sure these are real, right? The Guardian has shown the documents to independent experts who say they appear to be genuine. Incidental details come across as accurate. The overall tone and thrust is said to be consistent with Kremlin security thinking. That seems like that would be pretty easy to fake. The Kremlin responded dismissively. Putin's spokesman, Dmitry Peskov, said the idea that Russian leaders had met and agreed to support Trump at the meeting in early 2016 was a great pulp fiction, which, when contacted by the Guardian on Thursday morning. The report is classified as secret. It says Trump is the most promising candidate from the Kremlin's point of view. The word in Russian is perspektivny. I don't speak Russian. Although some people might accuse me of speaking Russian, right? She's a Russian asset. She's a Russian sympathizer. There is a brief psychological assessment of Trump, who is described as an impulsive, mentally unstable, and unbalanced individual who suffers from an inferiority complex. Now, this right here seems to be the real crux of what these leaked papers are meant to do to the discourse in America at the moment. So it's odd, right? Donald Trump is not president of the United States. They spent $36 million on a Mueller investigation trying to prove that there was some sort of collusion between the Trump campaign and Russia. They went after anybody and everybody. They found characters that were somewhat involved or had Russian links, like Paul Manafort or Michael Flynn. And they went on this witch hunt for a very, very long time trying to make a connection. They were unable to make a connection. The most that they figured out was that the Kremlin or Russian entities, Russian companies bought some Facebook ads in order to sway public opinion during the election. So why now would this report come out, this leaked report? Suddenly it's out, and now this is important news. Well, probably for this very line. The brief psychological assessment of Trump, who is described as an impulsive, mentally unstable, and unbalanced individual who suffers from an inferiority complex. So they're trying to needle at Trump. And this is something that the media loves. They love making stories out of Donald Trump. He's gone. He's out of office. He's banned from everything. I don't know how you hear from this guy or follow this guy. Not even sure where he is. And yet they continue to needle at him. They're needling at him in order to try to get him to react in some way. They're wanting to chip away at his machismo. They're trying to get him to feel, probably trying to get him to feel like he's, just to get him to feel riled up, or maybe even disparage him from running again in 2024, because there are talks of him running in 2024. So when I read this, I feel like that is actually what they're after. Needling at him to say, yeah, okay, we've got these documents. Not sure if they're real or not, but look what it says about you. Look at all the bad stuff Putin was saying about you, making Trump wonder, are these real? Are these not real? There's also apparent confirmation that the Kremlin possesses compromat, or potentially compromising material on the future president, collected the documents say from Trump's earlier non-official visits to Russian Federation territory. So they're sitting here saying that they have compromising pictures or information on Donald Trump. That is something that we knew according to the dossier, that early dossier. They were saying, that they've got something on Trump, and that is why Russia was able to control him. So they're continuing on with that without any evidence. The new evidence is these leaked papers that are not verified to be authentic. The paper refers to certain events that happened during Trump's trip to Moscow. Security Council members are invited to find details in Appendix 5 at paragraph 5, the document states. It is unclear what the appendix contains. Well, if they got these papers, why couldn't they get the appendix? That's my question. If the appendix has all of the good stuff, then why couldn't you get those? If you're somebody inside the Kremlin and you're going to be a whistleblower of some kind, you're going to leak these documents, wouldn't you include the appendix if the appendix has all of the incriminating evidence against Donald Trump? So it's really convenient that the appendix doesn't exist in this leak. Says this would help bring about Russia's favored theoretical political scenario. A Trump win would definitely lead to the destabilization of the U.S.'s socio-political system and see hidden discontent burst into the open, it predicts. If there's hidden discontent, it can't burst into the open unless it actually exists. So Russia, this sort of idea that Russia is going to create some sort of socio-political unrest in the United States, that can't happen unless that unrest is already there. So I just want to point that out. But again, what would their point be in doing that? You only do that if you're trying to overthrow a government. Not when you're instilling your Manchurian candidate who's going to do what you want because you're dangling compromising information over them. Says there is no doubt that the meeting in January 2016 took place and that it was convened inside the Kremlin. Okay, fair enough. The Security Council in the Kremlin meets at the Kremlin. High-ranking officials, including Putin, probably show up to the Security Council meeting. That would be my guess. An official photo of the occasion shows Putin at the head of the table, seated beneath a Russian Federation flag and a two-headed golden eagle. Russia's then Prime Minister, Dmitry Medvedev, attended together with the veteran Foreign Minister, Sergei Lavrov. Yes, of course, they all met. That happens all the time. It's the government, the Russian government. They meet. Also present were Sergei Shoigu, the defense minister in charge of the GRU, Russia's military intelligence agency, Mikhail Fradkov, the then chief of Russia's SVR Foreign Intelligence Service, and Alexander Bortnikov, the boss of the FSB spy agency. So all of these high-ranking officials showed up to this meeting. Once again, it was a government meeting. I would imagine the government to show up. According to a press release, the discussion covered the economy and Moldova. The document seen by The Guardian suggests the Security Council's real covert purpose. So, right, the Russian government gets together. They meet. They meet about Russia. They meet about Russian government business. But no, their real covert purpose was to discuss the confidential proposals drawn up by the president's analytical service in response to U.S. sanctions against Moscow. Okay, as if Russia doesn't have anything better to do. They've got a lot on their plate. They're their own country. They are focused on a lot of things. Do I think they try to meddle in U.S. elections? I actually think they try, yeah. Why not? Why wouldn't they? I think China tries. I think Israel tries. I think a lot of countries, Saudi Arabia, I think a lot of countries probably somehow meddle in our elections. They probably sit around and do pick their favorites and do what they can to assist those favorites in gaining access to the White House. That would be my guess. Does that mean anything that is worth really anything? Is it enough to tear America apart? Is it enough to then point fingers at Americans and somehow paint them as assets or agents for foreign countries? Basically accusing them of treason or espionage, working for a foreign government, being a traitor to the United States. Is that really the path that we're going down? Yes, it is. It's the path that we're going down. I wish that wasn't the path that this country at this time. I mean, we've seen this before. This happened in the 50s during the McCarthy era. This isn't new. But it should have been a time that America looked back at in our history with shame. We should be ashamed of McCarthyism. And yet we're not really ashamed of it. Instead, we're reviving it. We're instead marching forward with it. and using more amplification, because now we have the power of social media, in order to accuse people of working for dictators or foreign governments or, Russians or Syria or whatever it is. This is a dangerous precedent that we have set in American politics. It's one thing to disagree with one another when it comes to our policies. We can have those discussions. But when you go on a character assassination campaign, then what is it that it's really saying? It's saying you don't feel like you can actually argue or debate on the merit of your ideas. You're instead going on a character assassination in order to just smear the person so that they are viewed as irrelevant by the audience, by the voting population. It's extremely dangerous. And this right now, this is something that obviously we all know the left is doing mostly to the right. So this is the Democrat talking point going on, using this sort of, you're working for the Russians, you're some sort of Manchurian candidate, you're affiliated, you're a traitor in some way. That is something that the Democrats right now are using against Republicans. But listen, this is not something that's going to stop with Democrats doing it to Republicans. Republicans will eventually do it to Democrats. And we're already starting to see the early inklings of this when it comes to China. We're already seeing the Republicans pointing the finger at Democrats saying, well, you were sleeping with a Chinese spy, or you are actually doing business with the Chinese. You are a Chinese asset of some way. All of this is dangerous for America's discourse. And if Russia did have the plan to create social unrest for whatever sinister reason I can't imagine at the moment, if it goes deeper than just trying to overthrow our current government or overthrow certain leaders, if it goes deeper beyond that and they really are trying to create social unrest, then they're doing a great job. It's working. And if that's the case, then maybe we should all take a step back and say, maybe we should unite together and remember that we are all Americans working for the best interest of America. Ideally, I would like to be able to say that, but I actually don't even believe that. To be quite honest with you, I don't think most people are working in the best interest of America. I don't think they're working for foreign entities. I think they just work for greenbacks. That's it. They just want money. And I think that is the one thing that the majority of people in this country that are leading our country, unfortunately, are most loyal to. So I'm going to end it there. But once again, here's another round of Russiagate. Trump is a Manchurian candidate for Vladimir Putin. Thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe to the channel. Be sure to hit that bell to receive notifications. Also, please sign up for my newsletter, Kim Iverson Uncensored. That link is down below, or you can go to KimIversonUncensored.com to sign up for that email newsletter. There are some segments that I'm not able to post on platforms such as YouTube. And that being the case, I do post those on other platforms because this is an uncensored show. You will get all the information from me. You just might not get it in the place where maybe you're watching the show right now. So be sure to sign up for that newsletter, and I will be sending out notifications when I post more sensitive content for certain platforms. So KimIversonUncensored.com. Thanks so much for watching.